Hello everyone, welcome back to True Crime Friday. Definitely full on welcome back to True Crime Friday. Last week we covered a case that we have covered before on this stream. But today we're covering a brand new one. One that I originally said that I was never going to cover. If you've been here long enough, you might know that I said I was never going to cover this case because it disturbs me greatly. Kind of broken that. Hey Matt, how you doing? I'm making sure you're getting extra good audio until I can order my new mic. So I'm holding it straight to me today. Doing proper presenting work, I guess. So yeah, if you can't tell by the title, we are covering the Fred and Rose West case. What mic you getting? Might be getting a Snowball. I've heard they're pretty decent, especially for the price that they're at, so I might just get one of those. Keep it nice and simple. I did want to get one where I can just like put it like on the edge of my desk so it clutters my desk less, but I kind of just want to make sure I get a mic that's, at least pretty decent quality. So yeah, I think we're just gonna get a Snowball. So I'm gonna try and add some comedy to this as much as I can. However, if you have watched me for a fair bit, then the Blue Yeti is it's out of my price range right now. Otherwise I would be getting that. So you can't tell by my voice. I've been researching this for this entire week. I've listened to podcasts, many documentaries, read quite a fair bit of this, and even listened to interviews with a lot of the victims that actually survived this. And safe to say, it's took its toll on me. And tomorrow I'm day drinking, and it's going to be needed after this, let's say. So, oh god, I'm going to try and add some comedy to this as much as I can. I'm going to try and add some humour, not towards the victims obviously, but towards these two arseholes. Yeah, there's massive trigger warning for those who aren't aware of this case. This case will contain a lot of mentions of obviously murder. It'll contain a lot of violence, sexual abuse, mostly aimed towards children. Unfortunately, I will not go into graphic detail on the abuse towards the children. I will mention that it happened. I will not go into graphic detail because I've heard enough graphic detail from said children who are now adults now over the past week, and it makes me feel physically sick to even say it or think about it or listen to it. So I'll go over it, but I won't go into gruesome detail on it. That will be up to you if you do wish to look into it further yourself. I just do not feel comfortable in saying it, unfortunately. Hopefully you understand with that. And so there's a lot of mention of sexual abuse towards children. There's a lot of mention to violence towards children. And there is even the quite frequent mention of incest in this as well. So we're going to start off with going through Fred and Rose's early lives, going through their childhood, probably trying to analyse on how this all got to where it was. It's going to be pretty obvious on how it got to where it was, if I'm being honest with you. And we will then go into the crimes and also into the lives of the victims. I will not be I've had this request before, but I will not be displaying pictures of Fred and Rose on this stream. I will be displaying pictures of the victims, the women who tragically lost their lives in this. There will be pictures of them because, in my opinion, they deserve to be remembered, especially on how they looked. They deserve their appearances to be remembered, not those two arseholes. So, a little bit of a comment, a little bit of a joke for you. Ladies and gentlemen, what is Gloucester most known for? What is Gloucester in the United Kingdom most known for? And if you say cheese, I am definitely going to say you're wrong. It is in fact Fred and Rose West, in my opinion. So we're going to start off with the eldest of the two, which is Fred West. So we're going to start with Fred. Also like to point out to anyone in the chat, if you do not want your comments visualized for the world to see, watch what you say. If you want to be very cautious, it doesn't really matter anyway, because this is a highlight that will get uploaded onto YouTube for people who want to carry on watching it into the future, who want better access to it. So just want to pre-warn on that one. So yeah, let's go into Fred West. So Fred was born in a small town in Muchmarkle in Herefordshire. He was also, I've listened to a lot of American podcasts as well covering this case, and it just amuses me on how they say these towns. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. If you're not like grown up in the UK, you're probably not going to be familiar with a lot of these towns or how to pronounce them. But it just amuses me on how they say Herefordshire. They're like Herefordshire, and I don't know why. It amuses me. Sub gay vibes. Get ready for some gruesome details on this. Also, I want to point out, if anyone gets really disturbed during this case and you do want to click off the stream, I completely understand this is not for everyone, and I'm so aware of this. This is going to be a long one because we're covering 2 people today. Woohoo! So I'm very sad. Oh god, this is probably not going to be the good stream for you, gay vibes, I'm not going to lie. This is going to be freaking depressing. Oh, you missed your last name, that's fine. This is going to be a very depressing stream. I'm not going to be as humorous today because I've had a week full of this shit, and it's killed me right off, to say the least. I'm not home right now, and I'm using my Chromebook. Oh, how's the Chromebook? I forgot my charger. No! No! Okay, yeah, that sucks. How much battery have you got left on there? Like, how much battery have you actually got? So damn sad. Yeah. So we're gonna make everything a little bit sadder, I'm afraid. So back to Fred. So Fred, start from the beginning. Fred, 20%. Fucking hell, man. Let's hope this lasts. So Fred was born in a small town in Muchmarkle in Herefordshire. He was the second of 6 children of Walter Stephen West and Daisy Hannah Hill. By Fred's own account, sexual abuse of various kinds was common in the household, and he even claimed that his father had sexual relationships with his daughters and even taught him bestiality from a young age. So, what would essentially happen? Fred sounds annoying. Fred is a nuisance. Let's say this. So Walter openly abused his daughters over the years, and it wasn't exactly a secret. The mother, Daisy, was also aware of this. She even was involved as well, so this was very much a common thing. Apparently this actually happened in the family. Fucking hell. What's going on? Why is this? Oh my god. Did that like echo for you? Because that echoed for me and I don't actually know why. I'm gonna have to like mute my thingy-me-bob, my computer, because that's probably not gonna be good for me to hear it like a billion times. But thank you, Jordan McQueen, for the follow. Thank you so much. Welcome to the stream. This is going to be a very different kind of stream to usual. But hi, how are you doing today? And please grab you drink alcohol. Please grab a drink. You're gonna need it. I'm gonna need it after this. Oh Jesus Christ. Wait, was that bullet from a Valentine gift for the follow? There's a bullet from a Valentine gift for everything. I'm just gonna say that. Like, literally for every single thing. Every single alert is bullet from a Valentine. There's a different one for each, and it amuses me so much. It brings a little bit of joy. Also, lets me acknowledge the metalheads. So yeah, Jordan, this is a very, very dark true crime stream. So yeah, so Walter would frequently, like I said, abuse his daughters. And he even, when Fred was a small child, Well, they lived on a farm, so Walter would take Fred into the farm and show him how to have sex with various different animals. It sounds like this is just a horror story. I mean, it is, but you wouldn't think this is reality now, would you? But yeah, Walter did that quite often. Daisy was very much aware of this and actually actively encouraged it. It was suspected that Fred's mother actually took Fred's virginity when he was 12 years old. When he was 12 years old. This is also around the time that Walter showed Fred how to abuse his sisters. And even though Fred actually never admitted to any of this happening, it was actually kind of confirmed by neighbors and also by the siblings of Fred. So the other children have come forward and said that this was something that happened, something that they did not consent to, but Fred was very much consensual in all of it, really, especially over time. So Fred, obviously, like I said, engaged in incest, but it was mostly obviously rape that he did towards his sisters. And so regardless of all the abuse, Fred and his mother were very, very close as mother and son, as well as other things. When he was physically punished for doing badly in school, where he showed more aptitude at woodwork and artwork, his mother often went to his school in person to yell at the teachers for basically apparently being the reason why Fred was failing in school. So Fred actually left school at the age of 15, even though he was almost illiterate, but he got a job as a farmhand at the farm that they actually lived on. So when he was 16, he apparently, according to a lot of the girls around the area, his looks improved and he became a lot more attractive to girls. Apparently a lot of girls really liked Fred, but naturally they probably didn't know what he was up to or what was going to happen later on. At the age of 17, he was in a motorcycle accident that put him in a coma for up to a week. It also led him to have a metal plate operated into his head, because actually his helmet that he was wearing when he was riding the motorbike actually completely split in half, and it actually caused his skull to do something very similar, which caused the metal plate to have to be operated onto his head. Now, and one of his legs was so badly damaged, it was permanently shorter than the other, so he constantly walked with a limp after that. Afterwards, he got a very bad temper and often had violent bursts of anger, which this could be a very key factor into what happened later on. Head injuries are very common with serial killers. They are very, very common. It's ridiculous how common they actually are. Every single serial killer has had some kind of head trauma, at least most of them have. And it's just very, very common. 2 years after the motorcycle accident, he actually injured his head again after he stuck his hand up a girl's skirt at a youth club and she turned around and punched him in the face, which pushed him down a fire escape. Get it, girl. We need to praise you legends for stuff like this. I want to know who this girl is. I want to freaking give her all my money. Like, yes, bitch. But obviously, later on in life, this goes pretty bad. So when Fred was 19, he had been doing petty crimes such as theft and stuff like this. So he'd actually been to court around the year before for stealing a gold watch from a local shop. So he got arrested very quickly after stealing the watch with one of his friends and got charged for this crime, but nothing really came of it in the end. But when he was 19, he had one of the biggest scandals, which apparently was actually almost covered up if it wasn't for an investigative journalist after Fred's arrest in 1992, when this all came to light of what actually happened. So when Fred was 19 years old, he was convicted of molesting a 13-year-old girl, even though he didn't serve any jail time, because his doctor said he suffered from epileptic fits. Apparently that's the reason why he did it. And I've met many people with epilepsy, and I'm going to say something. They don't do that. So afterwards, he was sent to live with his sister and was practically disowned by the rest of the family. Now, the reason why he was disowned by the rest of the family is actually because the 13-year-old girl that he abused was actually his younger sister, Kitty, aka Catherine, who he abused. And it wasn't that he just molested her, he actually got her pregnant. Now, she did not have the baby, she actually terminated the pregnancy, and ironically, it was Stephen and Daisy who reported Fred to the police, even though they were doing similar things to the children themselves. As soon as Kitty went to Daisy telling her that she was pregnant with Fred's baby, she reported Fred immediately, and he was instantly disowned from the family. So Fred, when he was living with his sister, he got a job in construction work, but was fired for stealing from his workplace. When Fred was 21, his family let him back into their lives, and he moved back to Muchmarkle, where he resumed a romantic relationship with an ex-girlfriend called Catherine Rena Costello. That's going to happen a lot, by the way. My throat dries up very quickly. So his ex-girlfriend was called Catherine Rena Costello. Rena was a name she went by when she was working as a sex worker to hide her identity a bit better. She was from Scotland, and when she was in Muchmarkle, she bumped into Fred, and she was also pregnant at the time with another man's baby. The biological father was an Asian bus driver from Scotland that she used to work with, but due to the disgust from her parents about the father's race, she left home and found Fred. Fred and Rena actually got married in November 1962, and the baby girl Charmaine West was born in March 1963. The two explained Charmaine's different race by saying that Rena had a miscarriage and that they both later adopted Charmaine after suffering the loss of the child. Don't know how they explain that, because adoption takes 20 years. So Fred actually carried on getting into trouble. He had a job as an ice cream van driver, which gave him more access to younger teenage girls in the area. Also, around the time as Fred was an ice cream van driver, he actually accidentally, this is actually an accident, by the way, he accidentally hit a young boy with his ice cream van, which ended up with the couple having to leave the area to escape the abuse that Fred was getting at the time. In 1964, Rena had the couple's first child together, who they named Anna Marie. It was also around this time that they met Anna McFall. Anna McFall was a friend of theirs who had moved to Gloucester with them where Fred found a job in a slaughterhouse after the ice cream van incident. According to some researchers, this profession may have catalyzed his morbid obsession with death, mutilation, and dismemberment. I mean, it probably gave him the skills. But I think he was a bit too far gone at this point, if I'm being honest with you. I think it was at this point where I think he was just done at this point. His brain was he was already gone. His brain was so far gone at this point. While living in Gloucester, there were 8 reported incidents of assault where the perpetrator's description actually fit. The e-fit actually matched Fred, but he was not immediately linked to these crimes. Rena and Fred's marriage became increasingly unstable, and Rena actually left Fred and returned to Scotland, leaving Fred in charge of taking care of Anna Marie and Charmaine alone. Well, not alone, he had Anna McFall with him, who was actually helping him take care, but Anna McFall had actually started to fall in love with Fred at this point in time. So when she returned a few months later, she found out that they were all actually living together on a caravan site. In early 1967, Anna McFall actually became pregnant with Fred's child, urging him to divorce Rena and to marry her instead. She even went so far to tell her parents that Fred was going to be the one that she would eventually marry. Fred, however, didn't want this and killed the 8 months pregnant Anna McFall that July and buried her near the caravan park. Actually, the next bit is very common, and he does this quite a lot. It's actually his signature. He ended up cutting off her fingers, toes, which ended up becoming a signature move of Fred's when it came to the murders. Rena moved into the caravan after Anna had apparently disappeared. Within 6 months of Anna's disappearance / death, Fred was linked to another disappearance of 15-year-old Mary Bastholme, who was kidnapped from a bus stop in Gloucester in January 1968, although only circumstantial evidence has ever been produced to corroborate this. Then in November 1968, he became acquainted with Rose Letts. So this is when he actually meets Rose, also known as Rosemary. He saw Rose sitting at a bus stop. Also, bus stops are so frequent in stuff like this. Like, what the hell? He went over and started chatting her up. At the time, she thought he was weird and creepy and actually hated the sight of his rotting teeth. So yeah, he never brushed his teeth. And he just fucking stunk. Like, what was the attraction? I want to know. I genuinely want to know what the attraction was. I don't get it. So she thought he was weird and creepy and hated the sight of his rotting teeth, and she rejected him and got on the bus. But Fred followed her on there and carried on trying to talk to her. Just want to say, lads, it don't work. Rose was a bit kooky anyway. Like, it don't work. Doing that it don't work. One day when Rose was actually working in a cafe, Fred stopped by asking her out again and giving her a dress as a present. Now, since he's met Rose, I think it's time we go in on Rosemary West. Oh god. Rose. She's a character and a half. Ugh, this bitch. Alright, this is when it might get a bit more comical because I cannot stand this woman. Rosemary West was born Rosemary Letts in Devon on the 29th of November 1953. She was the fifth child of electrician Bill and his wife Daisy Letts. Although not to the family's knowledge, Bill was actually a schizophrenic. He was aware of his mental illness, by the way, but he made the decision to actually keep it a secret and not get any help or take any medication for it. Well, that's gonna cause some issues, now isn't it, Bill? You fucking tit. Now, before Rose was born, the family, there was already a few other children within the family, and the entire family life was already insanely abusive. Bill was regularly abusing his children, and he was regularly abusing his wife Daisy. He was very, very frequent, and he would go into random bursts of anger at all points of the day. There was even one incident where it was his birthday and Daisy was trying to bake him a cake for when he got home from work. It's like a little nice surprise, you know, very, very thoughtful. So she told one of the kids to go to the shop around the corner. She gave the kids a little bit of money to go and get some eggs because that's the ingredient that she needed. And when she came back, when the girl came back, everything was just everywhere. The entire kitchen was a mess. The ingredients were absolutely trashed. It was absolutely everywhere. It was carnage. Daisy had a black eye. She had wounds that were healing from Bill's rage, and it turns out Bill didn't want a cake. And Daisy said, "Yeah, there's gonna be no cake today," because he just came home, saw that she was making a cake, and went into a random fit of anger. So the relationship obviously was very, very abusive, to the point where Daisy had actually reached a breaking point. She had a mental breakdown while she was pregnant with Rose and was diagnosed with depression. Now, she was actually given electroshock therapy whilst she was pregnant with Rose. Like to point out, electroshock therapy is still a form of therapy that is given today, but only under extreme circumstances. And is only under very, very, very extreme circumstances that they will do it while the patient is pregnant. But at this point in time, they did not care. Now, because of this, Rose would have suffered with a prenatal injury to the brain as a result. Now, despite living in a sunny seaside town of Devon, the family home was actually quite dark and depressing. Bill, like I said, was abusive towards his children and his wife. He had to have everything in order, like completely in order and perfect. He would make his daughters clean the carpet with their toothbrushes. And Rose at this time had notable signs of a child suffering from a prenatal injury. She wasn't as bright, and she was very, very slow compared to the other children of her age, and was known to be rocking back and forth constantly. So, like, you know, like, she did this apparently, like, a lot. To the point that Daisy, who Daisy said as a quote after Rose's arrest, she said, and I quote, "I bet she's still doing it now. She would never stop." Claiming that Rose, even in her 40s, would probably still be doing the same thing as she did when she was a baby. Now, due to this, she developed a nickname given to her by the kids at school and family members, and it was Dozy Rosie. Bill actually... Right, this is where it gets another bit more gruesome. You can see why they were the perfect match. Bill never really abused Rose as much as the other children. So Daisy actually thinks that this is because of Rose not being quite with it. But siblings say different. So Daisy has been asked this question before. She has been interviewed once by a member of the press. With her consent. She was not paid for the interview. I want to also clarify, she didn't want any money, and he didn't offer any money. So she was asked if she knows of any apparent sexual abuse that went on between Bill and Rose, and she says that there was absolutely none. She says there was no abuse at all. Even when she left the house, she doesn't think there would have been, because Bill just had to have everything perfect and organized and calm the way he wanted it. So she thinks he wasn't right in order to do that. You get what I mean. However, the other children say different. So, according to Rose's other siblings, Bill had been sexually abusing all of them. Rose did get the abuse a fair bit, but not as much as the other children. Even as an adult, she has never confronted this. One theory is that Rose actually has probably never confronted it because she learned to use it as a way to make her abuse be a lot lesser than the other children in the family. So she knew how to make sure that he didn't beat her, such as climbing into his lap when he got home from work, stuff like that, and potentially other things, like a various amount of other things. So at the age of 13, the family moved to the village of Bishop's Cleeve in Gloucester, and it was there that in 2 more years Rose would meet Fred. But before then, after the move to Bishop's Cleeve, the family abuse continued, eventually to the point of Daisy grabbing her stuff, the kids, and leaving to live with her eldest daughter and her husband. During this time, Rose had become a sex worker without her parents, not without her family actually knowing, and she managed to carry this on even more when her sister and her husband offered her a job, helping out at their motorway cafe. At the time, Rose would take orders and help restock everything. However, the brother-in-law... Hello, Milk, how you doing? However, her brother-in-law remembers a time when they both had to leave Rose alone at the cafe for a few hours. But when he returned to check up on her, he saw her leave a customer's lorry looking quite dishevelled. So when he asked her what she was doing, she explained that the customer was giving her a lift to go get more sausages since they had ran out. But it turns out actually that during her little breaks, bloody John Cena, God, that's fucking hell. Oh God. And so it begins. Good golly. This is going to be an entertaining stream with very, very awkward sounds. Okay. Don't use the orgasm one for this one. Please don't. I'm being genuinely serious. Like, no one use that sound until after the true crime case has been covered. It probably won't be appropriate for this case in particular. Just want to point out now, it 100% isn't. I actually made it in time for True Crime Fridays. Why is it not playing? I'm doing... Yeah, today For this true crime case, do not play the orgasm sound. I'm being deadly serious, like, don't. Because it's really not appropriate for this case. And to be fair, once you hear me say some things about this case, you'll probably regret actually playing it anyway. And you don't want that on your back. Because, turns out, Rose was actually entertaining the customers that would come to the cafe at the time. And also during this period, we need to bear in mind, Rose was actually still 14 to 15 years old when she was working as a sex worker. It actually came up to the point where sometimes it wasn't even sex work, so sometimes she wasn't even getting paid. She was just sleeping with these customers that would come up to the cafe, and it was, yeah, those blokes have a lot to answer for, to say the least. It is also reported that whenever Rose would go to visit her father for what she would call driving lessons, it actually meant that they were going to meet up for various other reasons. Ew. Sparking rumours around the area that there was more than a father-daughter relationship happening between the two of them. Do you see now why I told you not to play the sound? Do you see why now? There's a reason. So Rose was not allowed to work back at the cafe after this, and herself and Daisy moved back in with Bill. Rose then got a job at another local cafe, and at one occasion she was sat at a bus stop when a curly-haired man with rotting teeth approached her and started a conversation. He was asking her out on a date, and this is when 15-year-old Rose had just met 27-year-old Fred West. So now we're going to go into their actual relationship. Now we've covered their early lives. We're going to be going to their actual relationship and everything that transpires after that. Want to point out to anyone that's joined a bit later, don't worry, I'm recording this and it will be going onto YouTube. So you can rewatch it there, and I'll drop the link in the Discord when that happens. So after Fred followed Rose to her job at a cafe and asked her out again, also, he gave her a dress to wear for the date. Fair, you know what? That part is probably the most decent thing the fucker ever does. It's probably the sweetest moment between the two of them. Probably lasted 2 minutes. The next God knows how long is fucking disgusting. So let's get into it. The two went on their first date to a local pub, and apparently they shared a passionate kiss. And Rose soon moved into Fred's caravan with him, Charmaine and Anna Marie. So Rose actually around this time brought Fred home for the first time to meet Bill and Daisy. Her parents were very, very shocked, to say the least, to see Rose come home with a much older man. Daisy was very, very disgusted about the fact that Fred was 27 going on 28, and he was in a relationship with her 15-year-old daughter. Bill and Daisy actually forbid Rose to be with Fred and tried putting a stop to the relationship instantly. Bill even took it so far to put Rose into foster care to keep her away from him. But this obviously didn't last long, so if you didn't know, I don't know how it is anywhere else, but in the UK, when you turn 16, you are no longer in foster care. But you can get a apartment from the council, I'm pretty sure, when you're 16 to give you a secure house or secure housing for a while she found out what to do, I guess. So only a few months later, on Rose's 16th birthday, she left the care home but went straight to Fred's caravan. Around this time, she also went and collected her stuff from Bill and Daisy's home and moved straight in with Fred. So around this time, Fred and Bill had actually started to get along, especially when he saw that Fred had a talent for building and woodwork, or possibly having the common thing of sleeping with Rose. A few months later, Fred and Rose moved from the caravan that they shared to a 2-story house in Midland Road, in Gloucester. On the 17th of October 1970, Rose had given birth to their first daughter, Heather Ann West. She was only 17 years old, and Fred is about 29 at this point. Not long after Heather had been born, Fred was actually put into prison for theft on the 4th of December 1970 and remained there until he was released on the 24th of June 1971. Rose was left to look after the 3 children alone. She particularly didn't like Charmaine, Fred's adoptive daughter, from his still current wife, Rena. According to Anna Marie, the 2 girls were subject to frequent beatings, but Charmaine suffered the worst of it all, especially when she refused to give Rose the satisfaction by crying. No matter how severe the beatings got, Charmaine never cried. Charmaine actually disappeared in mid-June in 1971, with Rose explaining to Anna Marie that Rena had called in the night and had taken her back to Scotland, but didn't want to take Anna Marie. Which, God, man, the kid's fucking... Like, Charmaine was like 8. She was 8 years old at the time. Anna Marie was like a year younger, something like that. A year, 2 years younger. And imagine just, like, being told that your mum has come to get your sister but has left you here to deal with this horrific woman. Like, what would that would just mess you up. So yeah, she told Anna Marie that Rena had called in the night and taken her back to Scotland, and in August 1971, Rena actually did come to collect Charmaine and Anna Marie, but she then also disappeared. It is actually suspected, based on Fred's account, that he got Rena drunk and suffocated her because he didn't want the questions into where Charmaine was. We will get into Charmaine when I do go through all the victims. Don't worry, we're going through all the crimes and all the lives right now of Fred and Rose, but we get into the victims where I will actually display pictures of the victims as well. There will not be any pictures of Fred and Rose. Like, there won't be. So, in October 1972... Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong bit. 29th of January 1972, Fred and Rose got married in Gloucester, and on the 1st of June of that year, Rose gave birth to their second daughter, May. Around this time, Fred encouraged his wife into doing sex work. Rose eventually had 7 children, 3 of which were mixed race from being fathered by some of her clients. Which was one of Fred's actual fantasies, by the way, to have a mixed race child. Believe me, you see a few of those fuckers everywhere nowadays. Like, they literally only want, like, a child that's mixed race, but just for the But this is what it looks like. It looks like... I'm shooting myself in the foot. Sometimes it does look like there is a lot of people out there that only want a mixed race child just for the fact that they are fucking beautiful children. They are absolutely adorable. But I think that's the only reason why they fucking want a mixed race child. I think, like, the way they talk about it just makes it look like they only want it as... They only want the child as, like, a accessory sometimes. And it's just like, fuck you. That's just my opinion, because that's just how it looks sometimes. So after the 7 children, they needed a bigger house, and the family moved into 25 Cromwell Street, where Fred converted the upper floor into bedsits, and Rose's room, the room Rose used for sex work. They actually had a red light on outside the door, so the kids wouldn't ever go into the room when Rose was actually working, which, fair. But the room also had a peephole in the wall and had sound equipment so Fred could watch and listen to Rose entertain other men, because he apparently really enjoyed that. In October 1972, the Wests hired 17-year-old Caroline Roberts. So this is Caroline Roberts. She was 17 years old. I think she's 17 years old in this picture as well. Caroline was waiting at a bus stop when the two drove past and offered her a lift. They were all getting along very well at this point, and Caroline actually mentioned how she tends to stay out later so that she spends less time at home with her stepfather, who she hated. At hearing this, Fred and Rose asked her to come and work for them as their nanny for their 7 children. And while arriving at the house and moving in, she was instantly creeped out by Fred's constant conversations about sex and Rose's advances towards her too. Especially Rose refusing to not wear underwear around the house. That was very common. Rose never wore underwear around the house, and she frequently walked around naked, including in front of the children. Fucking weird. Ugh, I can imagine that house stunk as well. On the 6th of December 1972, the Wests invited Caroline back into their home, where they both raped and tortured her in the cellar. Fred allowed Roberts to actually leave to go to the laundrette with Rose, and after Caroline told Fred that she'd never tell anyone about any of this, after going through all the torture for about a week, she then took a chance and ran straight to the police. She reported the rape and also the conversation that she had with Fred, where he said he would kill her and put her under the paving stones of Gloucester. She later withdrew the case, and when it came to court, the Wests pleaded guilty to the reduced charge of indecent assault and were only fined £50. Caroline would also later be a witness at the later trial in the 1990s when it comes to the final arrest and trial of Rose West, which actually helps a lot when it comes to the trial. In early 1973, the West took 8-year-old Anna Marie to fucking hell, how do I explain this bit? The only way to explain this next section, I'm going to have to give a massive, massive trigger warning to you now. To find out this information, it's very open, it's very out there. However, I did have to listen to Anna Marie as an adult talk about this in great detail, and believe me, it makes you feel fucking sick. So I've got to warn you right now, the next bit is very, very gruesome, so please be aware. Jesus Christ. In early 1973, the Wests took 8-year-old Anna Marie to the cellar, where they bound and gagged her before Fred raped her whilst Rose watched and helped. Rose was actually reported to be laughing during this. Fred told Anna Marie that all fathers do this and all children do the same thing, and for her to not get so worked up about it, it is normal. It is not normal, Fred. You're fucking stupid. This carried on, and when she turned 13 years old, Rose took her to the pub and got her drunk. She then raped her in the back of Fred's van while he drove them home from the pub. Later that week, Anna Marie was taken into Rose's room where she entertained her clients and made Anna Marie become a sex worker at the age of 13. The thing is, right, there are a lot of men out there that are probably still alive right now who have so much to answer for. And it actually pisses me off. Like, there are so many arseholes out there who were involved in this that we need. I want the fucking names, and I want them to be put away. Because if they were doing this then, bear in mind, it's fucking obvious she's 13 years old. I've seen, there's pictures of her when she's 13, like school pictures. It is clear as day that she's 13 years old. You know what you're doing. I bet you those two actually told you what you're doing. Yet you're doing it anyway. And I bet you there is every single chance that that those people have probably done this to other people as well. Like, there are so many people who are accountable for this. There are so many people who were very much aware of the abuse that was going on in that house. There are so many people that were very much aware of the abuse that was happening to those kids, who saw the conditions of the house and did nothing. Who helped. The lodgers, the people that were living there in the bed sits, they were on the other side of the house. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people that literally came round were clients and helped with this abuse. Like, there are people that helped with this. And there's so much more, there's so much accountability that needs to be made with this. Like, so much. It makes me angry. And I feel fucking sick right now. I know, I feel very sick right now. I feel lightheaded just fucking reading this shit out. Thankfully, Anne Marie actually left the house when a few years later. She left the home with her boyfriend at the time. They had to move in again at some point because they couldn't financially afford a place to stay. And then they moved out again not too long later, and they left for good. They got married, and that was the last. And when she got married, that was the last time she saw Fred and Rose, and she never went back to the house. But unfortunately, after Anne Marie left, the two turned the same abuse onto Heather, who disappeared a few years later when she was 16. We will go into Heather. Don't worry, eventually. I just feel fucking sick, man. So in May 1992, fucking hell, do I want to read that bit? No, I'm not reading that bit. It's actually important. Fucking. When you realise the stuff that you found out, you don't want to read it out anymore. In May 1992, Fred filmed himself abusing one of his daughters, and twice again afterwards. That child, who is not named, went to her friends at school and told them what happened. On the 4th of August, one of those friends told their mother, and their mother actually went to the police. Big up that woman, because it has actually been noted that a few of the children actually, like Heather, actually went to one of her friends and confided in them. And they told their parents, who actually told Fred and Rose what Heather had said, which resulted in Heather actually dying. So there's a lot of people who have a lot to answer for, in my opinion. On the 6th of August 1992, the police decided to investigate, eventually leading into, "Hey Emerald, hey Em, how you doing? This is a very depressing stream. I'm going to try and pick it up again soon." So the police decided to investigate in 1992, eventually leading to Fred being charged with Rose as an accomplice with rape. She was also charged with child cruelty, and the remaining children were placed into foster care. The rape case against the West collapsed when the two main witnesses declined to testify at the court case on the 7th of June 1993. The police continued investigating, however, the disappearance of their daughter Heather. We need some good vibes. Once we finish this case, we will have some good vibes. After taking statements from social workers about a joke about Heather being buried under the patio and the children themselves, they obtained a further search warrant in February 1994, allowing them to excavate the garden in search of Heather. They started searching the house and excavating the garden on the 24th of February 1994. After West's arrest the following day, the police uncovered human remains. He confessed, retracted, and then reconfessed to the murder of his daughter, denying that Rose was involved. Rose was not arrested until April 1994, initially on sex offence charges, but then later charged with murder. Further bodies were found, and on the 4th of March 1994, West admitted that he had carried out 9 more murders, including those of his first wife and Anna McFall. I'm changing my room around for no fucking reason, so I won't be active in the chat for a bit. Don't worry, it's fine. Let me know how it goes. Fred and Rose West were brought before the Magistrates' Court in Gloucester on the 30th of June 1994. He was charged with 11 murders and she was charged with 10. Immediately afterwards, Fred was rearrested on suspicion of murdering Anna McFall, whose body was found on the 7th of June 1994. On the evening of the 3rd of July 1994, he was charged with her murder. On the 1st of January 1995, Fred West hanged himself while on remand in his cell in Winson Green Prison, Birmingham. His funeral was held in Coventry on the 29th of March 1995, and he was cremated with only 3 people present. Now, this made it very, very difficult for those trying to charge Rose. So the evidence against Rose was circumstantial. Unlike her husband, she did not actually confess. So she had all these murders actually on her now. However, because she's not confessing and Fred had confessed to all the murders, it made it very, very hard for the jury for there to be a trial for her, because they've not really... They've got Fred confessing to all of them. They've got Rose saying not guilty for the rest. So they're kind of, at this point, screwed. She was tried in October 1995 at Winchester Crown Court. She was found guilty of all 10 murders and sentenced to life imprisonment. The trial judge recommended that she should never be released, and 18 months later, the then-serving Home Secretary Jack Straw agreed with this recommendation. In October 1996, the West House, along with the adjoining property, was demolished and the site made into a pathway. Every brick was crushed and every timber was burned to discourage souvenir hunters. In 1998, interview with Charlie Rose, English novelist Martin Amis revealed that he was a cousin of the West victim Lucy Partington, who disappeared in 1973. Now, what we're going to do next, we're going to go into the victims, like all the victims, and we're going to give them the utmost fucking respect. So, start off this, right, so to start off, we have, one second, make sure I've got everything ready for this. Right. So right here, right here on your left, right here, there we go. This is Charmaine West. She was the first victim of Rose. Technically, she is Rose's victim. So obviously, Charmaine, as we have mentioned, was the child that Fred had raised with her mother Rena. Her father wasn't Fred and was in fact an Asian bus driver from Scotland. At the time, Rena was pregnant out of wedlock and also with a person of colour's child, meaning a lot of people were a bit no about it. So what they did instead, they told everyone that Rena had miscarried and that they had actually adopted Charmaine to explain her skin colour. Charmaine was born on the 22nd of February 1963 and got Fred's last name, West. But when Fred was in prison in 1970 up until June 1971, Rose was left in charge of taking care of Charmaine and Anna Marie and their firstborn child, Heather. During this time, Charmaine got abused most out of the children by Rose, who instantly had a dislike to the little girl. Rose even sent a letter to Fred whilst he was in prison saying, "Charmaine likes to be hit rough." When Fred returned home after being out of prison, Charmaine was nowhere to be found, and Rose confessed to her murder. Fred was apparently actually pretty pissed off about this. He was really, really upset that Rose had done this to his child. But, however, even though Rose is believed to have killed Charmaine, which is actually true, considering Fred was in prison at the time of the murder, the forensics actually say that she was missing toes, kneecaps, and fingers, which was Fred's key thing to do, actually. Bloody hell. So, apparently the missing bones were retained as keepsakes. Poor Charmaine. I hate this case so much. I hate it. I absolutely despise it. The next victim is Catherine Bernadette Rena Costello, also or West, depending on. You know what? Rena Costello. We're not associating her with her. We're not. No, she deserved better. She deserved so much better. So Rena was actually the first wife of Fred. In September 1962, they reacquainted and then got married later in that November. And in February 1963, Charmaine was born, and in July 1964, they had their first child, Anna Marie, together. During this period, Fred worked as an ice cream van driver. Blah 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 blah. We already know this bit. And on the 4th of November 1965, they moved from the area after Fred had accidentally killed a 4-year-old boy. Poor Catherine had a very, very hard life growing up. She didn't have a good relationship with her parents in the slightest. She was actually prostituted out, meaning that she had a pimp, basically. He actually protected her quite a fair bit, if I'm being honest. He actually did a better job, and he was actually trying to actually take care of her, unlike Fred. So the family, along with their friend Isa McNeil, the couple's nanny, and Rena's friend Anna McFall, moved into a caravan park in Bishop's Cleeve, Gloucestershire, at the end of 1965, when West feared for his safety. To escape from Fred's sadistic sexual demands, Rena and Isa moved back to Scotland in 1966, while McFall, who had fallen in love with Fred and the 2 children, stayed with him. Rena continued to visit the children every few months. However, in 1967, she returned to live with Fred, but then left the following year. However, she did come back in August 1971 to take back Charmaine and Anna Marie. And it's believed that Fred actually killed Rena to avoid an investigation into Charmaine's whereabouts, since Charmaine had already been buried after being murdered by Rose. Apparently he got her drunk and actually suffocated her and buried her in a field in Gloucester. The next victim is Linda Carol Goff. She was born on the 1st of May 1953. Linda Carol Goff was a lodger at 21 Cromwell Street. Goff and Rose would share the clients in the home. They would actually work together for some odd occasions. Following her disappearance, Goff's mother actually called around the house to see if anyone at the home had seen her daughter. Rose answered the door and denied ever seeing Linda, until Linda's mother pointed out that Rose was actually wearing Linda's slippers, and when she looked past Rose, she could clearly see Linda's clothes hanging on the washing line. Now, this is when Fred arrived next to Rose, and the two said that they do remember seeing Linda, and that she had left with her boyfriend, leaving all of her clothes so she could live in Weston-super-Mare. When in fact, Linda actually was one of the 12 victims. The next victim, unfortunately, is Carol Ann Cooper. Carol Ann Cooper was born on the 10th of April, 1957. She was living in a children's home in I can never say this word. It's been 20 odd years and I still can't say this word. Worcester? I live in the UK and I can't say this bloody word. When she disappeared while walking home from the cinema, Fred and Rose would have probably actually driven past her and asked her if she needed a lift. And when in the van, they went down their usual route of offering her a job as their nanny. When back at the house, she would be taken down to the cellar, beaten, tortured, raped, and then killed, unfortunately. She died in November 1973, according to dental records, which is the only way a lot of the deaths are actually recorded. Her remains were found 21 years later beneath 25 Cromwell Street. Next victim is Lucy Catherine Partington. Lucy was born on the 4th of March 1952. She had spent Christmas Day with her family. Hey, Jump Squad. Welcome. I think this might be your first true crime case with us. Welcome. How are you doing? So, Lucy Catherine Partington was born the 4th of March 1952. She had spent Christmas Day with her family in Cheltenham before visiting a friend the day after Boxing Day, and disappeared after leaving to catch the bus home. Doing good. Glad you're doing good, mate. How your streams going lately? I saw you reached a affiliate. Congratulations! So, there was a strong evidence that she'd been kept alive for at least several days. Yeah, Jump Squad, this is what this is. A week after she disappeared, Fred actually went into a hospital in the early hours of the 3rd of January 1974 to get a serious laceration stitched. A knife matching the cut was found in Partington's body, and police summarise he sustained the injury while dismembering the body. Partington, a university student, was the cousin of novelist Martin Amis. Her sister asked to see Lucy's remains after she was identified and put inside 2 small dolls that they had as children that were a request from their mother that Lucy should have. Her sister even sent a letter to Rose West while she was in prison, saying how she forgives her and thinks that Rose should seek hope. However, Rose, being the spiteful bitch that she is, responded through the prison, stating how she should never write to her again. Whatever, Rose, whatever. Hey, Apollo Games, how you doing? How are you, my friend? Welcome to the first true crime stream for you guys. It's pretty disturbing. It's pretty grim. You've missed the gruesome parts, actually. You've missed the very gruesome parts. The next victim is Teresa Sinengela. I am so sorry if I get this wrong. I probably will. She was born on the 27th of November 1952. She died in April 1974. She was a student in south of London who left to hitchhike to Ireland and actually disappeared, which means she would have been picked up by Fred and Rose West. The typical nanny job would have been offered, and she would have been taken down to the cellar instead and had the same treatment as everyone else, which was beaten, tortured, and raped before being murdered, and could have been left alive for up to a week. And her body would have been found about 20 years later. The next victim is Shirley Hubbard. She was born on the 26th of June 1959. She was killed in November 1974. She left a work experience course in Twtich to return home but did not arrive home. When her remains were found, her head was completely covered in tape with only a 3-inch rubber tube inserted to allow her to breathe. The anger that I feel when I read this stuff, the anger that I felt during this entire week just researching it is fucking ridiculous. I'm going to pick an easier case next week. Why did I think this was a good idea? Next week, if people want to recommend me a true crime case to cover, make it a little bit easier. Might do a smaller one. Jesus, what are we talking about here? Well, it's True Crime Fridays, which is a little segment that I do at the start of every Friday stream where we talk about true crime cases and we go into extra detail and depth in them and we talk about the victims and all this kind of stuff. And this particular one is probably the worst one I've ever covered. I've covered a fair few already, and this is the hardest one I've ever had to cover. Normally I can have a laugh and like take the piss out of the serial killers, but I'm really struggling today to do this. This one is really hard. There's a lot of things that I've actually chosen to leave out. Like there's so much detail that I've actively chosen to not put in today's stream because it's so dark. I can't say it. I can't say half the stuff that I've heard of this past week. I've heard things in documentaries that I don't ever want to hear again. They're so bad. If you want to research it, do it at your own will, but also fucking warning about it because it's so dark. It's ridiculous. Wouldn't recommend researching it. Wouldn't recommend it. Don't do it. Just save yourself that torture. Just save yourself that. So the next victim is Juanita Marion Mott. She was born the 1st of March 1957. Yeah. Did you know I like true crime? I swear I mentioned this the last time I saw you. This one is actually one of my least favourite cases, and I actually refuse to do this quite a few times. I've had this suggested to me before. I've had this recommended for one of the true crime streams, and I actually refused to do it. And only recently I was like, you know what, we'll do it, because this is the worst fucking thing ever, and people need to remember these women. People need to remember these girls. They need to fucking remember them, and there are so many people that did not get charged for so much shit. That needs to be held accountable for their actions. And people need to fucking stand with me on this crap, because they need fucking hell. I actually have anger with this. So this is Juanita. She was killed in April 1975. There is actually not an exact date to any of these murders. I want to point this now. They don't remember when they killed them. It was more dental records that confirmed it. So she was a former lodger at 25 Cromwell Street. She was living with a friend of her mother's in Newont when she disappeared. Now, she's apparently quite common for running away. Her sisters have actually come forward about this. Jesus. Her sisters have actually come forward about this already a fair few times. But she was actually known to wander off quite a few times, so they actually didn't report her as missing straight away. It was after a fair few months where they realised this is something different, this isn't right. And they reported it, and the police actually apparently really didn't do anything about it because she was known for doing this, so they just saw her as a runaway and just treated it like that. So she actually didn't get searched for. They probably wouldn't have found her anyway, but there wasn't much effort with finding her, which is horrible. But yeah, she was needing a place to live, so what happened basically, she got kicked out of the family home, and her sisters would actually apparently, for a fair amount of time, leave the bedroom window open so she could climb in and jump into their bedroom that they shared together, so that she had a place to stay and she wasn't sofa surfing all the time. And eventually, her boyfriend, who was currently at this point in prison with Fred, rang her and told her that, Fred's wife and their family have some lodging spaces and they will be very nice with her not being able to pay rent kind of thing. So she went there, spoke to Rose, and she became a lodger there, and obviously tragically died there when Fred came home. The next victim is Shirley Ann Robinson. She was born on the 8th of October 1959. She was killed May 1978, and she was a lodger as well at 25 Cromwell Street. Robinson was a sex worker for Fred and Rose, and she disappeared after becoming pregnant with Fred's child. There is more to that, by the way, of what he did, and I'm not going to actually say it. I can't. It makes me feel ill. Yeah, nah, I'm alright. Google it yourself. Like, seriously. Alison Chambers was the next victim. She was born the 8th of September 1962, and she died in August 1979. Now, she was actually known as the last sexually motivated killing. And she was also apparently, she wasn't a lodger actually, she was again another victim that was horrifically found at like a bus stop, and they targeted her there. Oh god, the last one. The last victim. This one. She's not the last victim, but she's the last identified. The others, unfortunately, have not been identified. Fucking hell. Feels heavy on my chest, I'm not gonna lie. This is, so the final identified victim. These are dark. Yeah. I know. The last identified victim was Heather Ann West. Heather was born on the 17th of October 1970. She was actually the first daughter of Fred and Rose. What happened to her is tragic. So Heather became the focus of their attention after Anne-Marie had left the home. Fred claimed that he had not meant to kill her, but she had been sneering at him and he had to take the smirk off her face, apparently. That is actually a quote from him when he was being interviewed. Rose had told an inquiring neighbour the following day that she and Heather had a hell of a row, and it is believed that Rosemary may have initiated her death. So, this all began about a few days earlier. Their eldest son Steve actually was in school around this time. So this is what happened. Don't have to look at the fucking screen for this. I remember this from the documentaries and the podcast off by heart. So Steve was actually in school when Rose realized that her porn magazines had been missing, and she immediately accused Steve of this. She actually rang the school and said, "Tell Steve to come home now." Steve came home and got a hell of a beating for this, and then eventually, like an hour later, Heather got sent home because Heather had been in school with the magazine, so Heather had actually done this, not Steve. Heather then got an even worse beating from Rose, and then eventually, a few days later, Rose confided in one of her friends about the physical and sexual abuse that she had been getting at the hands of her parents. This friend told her parents in order to hopefully help Heather. However, I want to beat the living crap out of these parents. These particular parents, didn't thought Heather was talking shit, basically, and went to Fred and Rose themselves and said, "Your Heather's been saying this." Which then led Fred and Rose to have that argument with Heather, which then resulted in Heather dying. Heather was so close to getting out as well. Around this time, she had applied for a job at a holiday camp in Devon. She was going to get away. She was excited. She was so ready to leave. She'd been talking about running away for years. She told Anne-Marie's boyfriend her plans of running away. He was giving her survival tips. The girl had been planning this for so long, she wanted out. She was so close to getting out. She got the job at the holiday home as well, which was absolutely amazing. But then, unfortunately, the job fell through and she was stuck. And this is when those parents told Fred and Rose about what happened. And that's when Heather died. The Wests told their children Heather had left for her job in Devon. Apparently that she had eventually got back. "Hi, Ansel. How are you doing today?" Ooh, TwitchCon Amsterdam. That is a very cool one. Ansel, you are very new here, and I just want to just warn you a little bit. This stream's a little bit dark. We are going to get into some joyful stuff very, very soon. But thank you for the follow. You're an amazing human. We're going to get into the fun stuff soon. We're going to make this a bit more entertaining very soon. Do not worry. It's almost over. We're almost done. And before you know it, I'm going to grab a fucking beer. We're going to have a laugh. And you know what? I'm going to dye my hair to get myself out this depressive funk. How about that? Dark doesn't mean bad. I mean, this is about a murder case. So it's a little bit bad. But we are reminding people of these victims. These victims are gone. They are unfortunately not with us any longer, but their stories will not be silenced, and we will let people know who they are, and they do deserve so much more fucking justice than they got. So many things could have been prevented, and people need to remember these fucking people. They need to remember their names. They need to remember what they looked like. These women were victims, and they need to be remembered, not just as they need to be remembered. Most people know about their names, but they don't know what they look like. These are these women, and you need to fucking remember them. Not mean to be abusive and like sound mean or anything, but it winds me up, man. So yeah, the West actually told the children that she got the job in Devon, but they always kept changing their story. They changed their story to say that Heather had gone to live in a cult. That she was pregnant, that she had become a lesbian. Like, mate, that one's not bad. Like, what? Later still, Fred would threaten the children and say that if they didn't stop misbehaving, they would end up under the patio like Heather. Heather's body was eventually found under the patio that Fred had inexplicably built over the fish pond his son Stephen had dug with him. And their only known victim after 1979 was obviously the daughter Heather, although the police believed the couple murdered more. There were no unknown murders in the years 1976 to 1977, 1980 to 1986, and 1988 to 1992. During the questioning after being arrested, Fred West had confessed to murdering up to 30 people, but the police believed the pair may have killed only 13. As well as the 12 confirmed, they believe West had also killed 15-year-old Mary Bishop in 1968, but to date, no body has been found. West's son, Stephen, has said he firmly believed the missing Gloucester teenager was an early victim of his father, as Fred West had reportedly boasted on committing Miss Bathstone's murder while on remand in prison in 1994. Although no forensic evidence linked Fred West to the murder of Anne McFall, the state of the body missing finger and toe bones, as was the case with the other bodies, and the dimensions of the gravesite matches aspects of West's frequent thing that he did. That, mate, it's been almost an hour and a half, and I've been all close to throwing up multiple times. That is the case of Fred and Rose West. That's it. We did it. We got through it. There is multiple things that I did keep out, but I kept them out for a reason. I did not keep them out for disrespect. I kept them out because I would have probably thrown up if I would have said them. Like I said, if you would like to Google that, please, you can do. Also, after this stream, that highlight of this entire true crime case will be uploaded onto YouTube if you do wish to rewatch it from the start, if you're a bit late joining. I will post the link in my Discord for all of you. Don't worry, the stream is not over yet. We're going to lighten the mood a bit. Do not worry, I'm going to drink for this. Also, once the stream is ended, if you or anyone else has been affected by crime, if you know anyone who has been affected, also if you have been a victim or know anyone who you suspect as a victim of sexual assault, violence or abuse at home or in general, I am going to put a series of links on my Discord and also on my channel for you to use if you so need to, and also a list of advice websites as well. And they will stay up from now until everywhere. Drinks sound half bad right now, I know, right? But yeah, I'll be posting I'll be posting helplines, various charities, and I will also be posting some advice columns in the Discord and also on my channel for links if you do need them. I will be uploading those today, because I feel like they're very important in order to do that. So, and also for those who are watching on YouTube, I'm going to be posting the links in the description as well, if you need them.